Hello everybody and welcome. Today I want to talk about Crown land in Canada and how this Crown land system affects us. In fact, how the whole entire Crown system affects us. And we are all seeing what's happening right now with the country, how the leadership is not good leadership with Justin Trudeau, and quite frankly with any political party right now that exists in Canada, or at least any prominent one that has had actual influence and sway over how we're going to do things with our everyday life. We understand that it is basically in shambles. It is just putting our freedoms in great threat, and right now there's a huge protest in Ottawa, in fact all over the country in many centers. Borders that have been blocked, bridges that have been blocked. It's become pretty serious. And people at those protests, at those trucker convoys, I am in full support of them. And the reason why is because everything that they say that they stand for, everything that they say that they're doing all this for, makes a lot of sense to me. And it makes a lot of sense to the majority of Canadians despite what the mainstream media is saying. So with that said, we know what's happening right now with our political situations. And at the same time, people also know the history of this country and what's been happening for the longest time. How our country is now rapidly, but for a while it was slowly transforming into what we're seeing today. All the signs were there. In fact, it was happening pretty fast, but not as fast as it's been happening in the past few years, especially since Justin Trudeau has basically taken power. Not leadership, power. And basically our tax system, our political system that is meant to serve us, that is meant to work for us, is now basically tyranny. They have become an authoritarian system where they're taking our resources, our tax dollars, and using them completely against us to subject us. Very greatly they are subjecting us. And now it is basically a fight for freedom. We all know how communist parties take power and what they end up doing to a nation, and basically that's what we're seeing right now is basically a copycat of the Marxist push, trying to take over all of our affairs and basically subject the entire nation, with what I believe is much more sinister things to come if we don't put these governments in check. No matter what kind of governments we have, what kind of political parties, it's all the same thing. And I believe that it is controlled, it's pretty clear that it is controlled by entities that are working behind the scene, that are controlling a lot of nations, and I think that they have a good coalition with all the English-speaking nations, or at least everything that's governing the English-speaking nations. Like, we're all basically still under a commonwealth, and when you look at our coin, it has the Queen's head on it. A lot of our system is referred to the Crown, specifically our land, saying that this is land that is under the protection of the Queen and whatnot, which in a sense makes sense, but if you really look at it, it is no different than subjection, because the way our Crown land is controlled, the way our system is referred to the Crown, it's almost like these people who are supposed to be managing our resources for the people are like our lords, our kings and our queens. And basically our political system, our representation, is basically that. So where we used to have a king and a queen back in Europe, the revolutions that were fought against that to bring in nationalism, then to bring in the identity of countries, the modern political system, the democracy. Basically all these people that are managing this quote-unquote democracy here are actually themselves like kings and queens. They're like little royal families, and they're controlling our resources and our people as so, but disguising it as democracy, where you really have to ask, what is actually democracy, where we the people vote these things out. We have a vote, we have an opinion, very major opinion, the majority, where almost everybody in a sense unanimously picks freedom, but then we got it run by these politicians that have to vote for it as well, and basically somehow we always lose our rights. We always lose our resources, we always lose. We just lose. And these people win. They stay in power no matter the oppressions, no matter the recessions, no matter the inflation. They're well off. And it's becoming pretty clear that they basically are the ones who enjoy the land that we have. Well, we are basically just tourists within our own country. For example, in British Columbia, they keep saying the beautiful, 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 beautiful British Columbia. Well, there's a lot of people that are basically dying from poverty, people that are dying from fourth world slums. And why I call them fourth world is because where you got the third world, where it's almost kind of not by people's choice. People are poor, they're broken, and in a sense, the third world's also a design thing. The fourth world is where, you know, you got enough resources, you got a beautiful country, it's more than enough for everybody. Yet there's the drug environment. There's people who are committing crimes and are basically what looks like allowed to commit these crimes while they catch little fish. The big fish are just gulping the society up with the drugs, with the corruption, with the crime that seems to work in taking out a real estate. Wherever there's a lot of bad influences, people are losing their real estate. And then what's happening? Big companies, like how big pharma is with our medical, big companies are basically buying off our land. The banks are in control of our land. And where we have these things that are land tenures, or legal ownership of rights is what we have. We don't actually have land ownership. And you're going to see that land is basically everything, you know, because there you grow, there you live and basically die is with your land. And when you don't have land, you're basically subjected. You're almost a permanent renter. You have to always rent. You always have to be a tenant for someone else that either has more control of a particular land or resource or business, because they don't actually have ownership. You know, like if we don't pay tax, the government takes back our land. And the thing is that there's people who are so crippled because of what's happening with our system that they can't pay that tax, or when they die, they don't have the means of really passing it on to their kids, or their kids can't take it. Also, there's a tax, I believe, for when a person passes away. You have to pay a certain amount of money, or else you got to live in the home and do this and that. I'm not very sure about that, but I know that it's made very hard for the children of the people who pass on to inherit the properties that they leave behind, to the point where they have to sell. It's very oppressive, or the government basically takes their property. And as for land, it's a very small amount of people in this country that actually own land. When they do own land, you know, they're pretty lucky. A lot of people are pretty successful. Me talking about how oppressive the system is, I also got to say that there's a lot of people that live free, but that has quite frankly been taken away from everybody now after 2015. Since these prices have become like this, since it's all these new rules, these bylaws, now they're talking about environmental pushes to save the environment, which if you look at it closely, it's just restricting people more in owning land. So a lot of these activist groups that are fighting for forests, old growth forests, which actually don't really do anything about how on the crown land all these natural trees, these landscapes have already been destroyed, but they're going after people's private land, saying that this land should be given back to the crown, that these agencies, these people want to manage these lands on our behalf, and when you pass away, instead of leaving it to someone or your children, why not just give it to us? They don't even offer to buy it. A lot of them are just saying, give it to us. They go after vulnerable seniors that really don't know any better, are afraid, who want to protect their resource, and are told that, hey, you know, we're going to keep your traditions alive, and we're going to take this land and protect it in the name of old growths. That's very disrespectful, going after people who actually have that private, somewhat land ownership, which I believe that the greatest tenure, which is what we have, tenures, is the freehold tenure. I believe that is the greatest one that we have, that the greatest land ownership is a freehold tenure, where we own a little bit more rights of ownership, or the just land rights than other people, where we have a little bit more of a say. But the problem is that we're still subjected to land acquisitions. We're still subjected to city planning, where they come in and say, well, we're going to expand. You know, we're not going to expand into the crown land. We're going to expand on all your private property. Basically showing people that they're just holding land for the government until the government decides what they want to do with that land. So we're almost like tenants for the government or the municipalities, until they say, hey, you know what, we're going to be taking this land now. We know that there's a market value, but hey, you know what, we can manipulate it a bit and give you much less than the market value. To the point where in provinces, I'm not going to even get into this, but some provinces where, let's just say you got woodlots, and on paper they're worth like $3,000 for, let's just say, like 50 acres. But the market value would be like $100,000, $200,000, maybe cheaper or maybe more. But then they say, oh, because you know you kind of get a little bit of a tax break, you don't have to pay that much tax because the land is valued this way, we're just going to give you $3,000 for your 50 acres. And you don't got a chance to sell it because we're the ones that are buying it. We're the ones that are taking it in the name of community planning. And then what's happened is that land is given to basically corporations who are going to make billions off that, or are going to charge stratas, or you know, they're going to help the economy, yes, but really does it help our economy if our people, it helps our economy, but does it really help the people in that economy? So that's what it is. It's almost like a communist system where they a little bit better than that, but it's basically very like that, where we're just basically tenants for the crown, or whatever you call it, for the royals that rule us, or let's say the politicians that are doing their best for us, or shall I say themselves. You know, we're basically holding this land for a system that doesn't respect us, abuses us, and takes from us. And I believe that we only inhabit less than 10% of the land in Canada, because the rest of the land, over 90% of it, is crown land. It is private land. It is land that is a resource, is what they call it, protect our resource, that has nothing really to do with us. When we want to buy wood, we don't get cheap wood. And we're also put under mandates and bylaws and restrictions to where we can't use different wood but that wood that is sold to us. So in a sense, it's almost like how they did it with the First Nations. You know, you'll give all your gold and all your pelts for a spoon. You know, we'll give you a fire stick, which is basically a musket, for hundreds of acres of your land, or thousands of acres of your land at once. Here's a musket, give me 1,000 acres. That's basically what's happening with us, where it's even worse in a sense. They take all our resources and then they sell it back to us at the highest price, the highest bidder. And that's what it's become, the highest bidder. When you go buy a home, you get a home that seems affordable when it's not supposed to even be that price. And then there's bidding wars on it, where a family who is saved so hard goes to try to buy that and they lose on it. And trust me, I was a victim to that when I was trying to buy a home just in the past 2 years, trying to do something, trying to mortgage something. It was extremely difficult for me and my family, basically to the point where I was not able to buy a home. And then I watched homes go from like some homes that were $150,000 in really cold regions, and where I live, now went up, or were inflated by $150,000 turned into $500,000 in almost overnight, a blink of an eye. And when we would complain to the real estate agents, they would kind of be like, oh, well, it's not really in our control, you know, but we're going to make a big commission off it. But, you know, they were embarrassed. But quite frankly, there was nothing you could do. I looked in places like Alberta where there was nice pieces of land, and they're like, oh, well, you can buy this land. It's somewhat cheap, but you can't put a mobile home. Now, why would I want to put a mobile home on the land? I would want to build a home. Well, it's because building a home is extremely expensive. There's a lot of things you have to do, a lot of loopholes you got to go through. And if you're not a well-established company, or a very wealthy person, or a person who has gotten rid of land before and has the resources to do that, quite frankly, that's not going to happen for anybody migrating to this country or starting from scratch. It won't happen. Basically, what I'm describing to you is that the majority of land will be owned through a mortgage, which is, yeah, that's typical. But what I'm saying is that that mortgage will never really be paid off. You'll be subjected for decades on end to pay for that. And we'll talk about maybe $150,000. You pay it for maybe like 5, 6, 7 years, depending, maybe even cheaper if you're paying a lot of money for it, which a lot of people don't make like that. So some people are looking at basically the rest of their lives, depending on how old they are. You're 35 years old, you'll be paying for the rest of your life. And the thing is that you may still be paying when you die. And then what happens? How are you going to pay for that? You know what I'm saying? That's subjection through and through, where well into your retirement you're still paying for your mortgage. And quite frankly, that is very hard. So that is what the Crown land has done to us, to the point where we are only able to buy in these city centers, these tight pack urban centers that are filled with bylaws, restrictions. Someone wants to have a dog, or their dogs have puppies, and they can have bylaws knocking on their doors. They could have police knocking on their doors. They could have social workers knocking on their doors if they make a mistake with their kids. Like, if you want a different kind of education system, you have to pay an arm and a leg, or you have to homeschool your child. But then if you send them to the public schools, they're subjected to all the indoctrination. And I have no problem against, people who have their views on LGBTQ, who want to have that community. But to indoctrinate and enforce it on every kid in public school as the curriculum, or the provincial curriculum, or national curriculum, or whatever you want to call it, is quite frankly an abuse of our charter rights through and through, because there's the majority of people that come to these countries from cultures that don't support that, or they don't align with those views. It's not that they're homophobes or this and that. They will be against it, but it's not that they inherently hate it or hate these people or have an issue with these people. Is that they have a system, they have a culture, and that is not respected. And then they got this LGBT flag, which is almost like a what? The flag of the New World Order, where it's flown in every country, but our flags can be put upside down. We can have things like Antifa, BLM come and call us, racist, nationalists, whatever they want to call us, misogynist. And I've had my fair share as a person who is not even Caucasian. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen black people who have posted things, and people haven't seen their face and call them racist, and they're like, wait, I'm black. Or Sikhs, people that are Hindi, people that are Chinese, who have the views that I have of freedom, or people with the Freedom Convoy who are called misogynist, racist, and whatnot. And then they have to show their face and be like, no, I'm not. I just support common sense. So how does this all tie to the Crown land? We're forced into these city centers. We're forced into these urban centers, suburban centers, whatever you want to call it. We're forced into this, basically, this cesspool where we can get COVID, we can get whatever variant, the Omicron, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry to kind of make fun of it a bit, but I've seen quite my fair share of things, to the point where it's not even sarcasm when I say these things. It's pretty serious. I just witnessed a kid, you can see my last video, which got censored big time, showing a kid that's being locked up because he wasn't wearing a mask or whatnot because of a mandate. Maybe the kid was being kind of difficult, and looks like one of those childcare workers grabbed him, or the school's police officer, or the enforcement or the guard that they have, locked him in basically what looked like a janitor's room. And the kid was saying, please let me out. You don't have the right to lock me in a room. You know what I'm saying? They didn't send the kid home. They didn't call the parents, it looked like. They just basically locked the kid in a room.
It is the law by Governor Pritzker to let me out of this room. You can't lock me in a room. You can't lock me in. Please let me out.
And you heard my outrage in that video. I was actually quite outraged. I didn't swear. I wasn't aggressive. But my voice sounded very aggressive. I was very angry. I demanded justice. But I wasn't like, hey, we got to go do some harm to someone or something. I was pretty frustrated. And in my videos, I have yelled. I have even screamed, in a lot of frustration, a lot of outrage. But I don't threaten people. I don't say that we got to have some sort of revolution and topple our government. But I have expressed that the Liberal government should be disbanded, and not just banned, but what I mean is, like, views like how the liberal government had it, where they're basically just taking away our freedom, being tyrannical, that should be banned. Yes, it should. Those kind of notions within other parties should be banned. Basically, like, not to ever let this happen again in a country that claims to be free, claims to be democratic. And yes, the question of what is democracy, or at least what our version of democracy is. What if we actually did what real democracy says it's supposed to do? How things would be different. And that's when we know we don't have a quote-unquote democratic system. Instead, it's more like a communist system, where instead of seeing Stalin to his death, we see different Stalins or different little Hitlers. You know what I'm saying? With different excuses and different methods of how they apply their tyranny over us. So, some of you may not understand in depth what I'm saying. For me, it's really hard to say these things. I have, believe it or not, I got impairments in speaking and communication. But over the years, I have really practiced. I really rehearse what I'm going to say. I sit in front of this camera, and I probably make the video over 20 times before I get it right. I have to cut segments, do things. But I'm trying to use my voice the best that I can. You can see in the back, I got a flag which comes from South America and my origins of Spain. You know, but as a Canadian, I also have the Canadian flag in my house. It's just, this is a part of my library in a private room, where I can sit here and express myself when my family's not home. Sometimes when I really have opinions to say, I ask my family to take a walk while I make these videos in this private room. But I do have the Canadian flag, and it flies proudly in my house. Well, it doesn't fly, it hangs, because I don't got wind in my house. If I had wind in my house, then I'll definitely really be feeling the poverty of where we're heading to in this country. Sorry for that sarcasm, but that's the reality of it. I am a Canadian patriot. I'm also a patriot for my Spanish-speaking language. I've felt the pain, I've felt the tensions, I've felt the racism in the past, but I don't hold it to anyone. I don't start joining Antifa or wanting an SLM, Spanish Lives Matter. You know what I'm saying? I don't do that. I don't align myself with stuff like that. What I do is I just hold my tongue, you know, hold my emotions. I let them out in different ways, by doing martial arts, by making a video like this, by trying harder for my family. You know, me being a stepdad of 1 and a father of 2, making it a father of 3, and a proud fiance. I am really trying my best, like the majority of all of you, everybody who's watching this video. And for all you politicians or police officers or people who are enforcing what's happening right now to us, you know, putting this over to us right now, you know, I understand that your job is hard too. And I understand that especially for police officers and healthcare workers that are under a lot of pressure, even members of our military, been watching a lot of brave people come out and speak and say, hey, listen, you know, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose your families and freedom, or are you going to choose protecting something that has taken that away from this country, taking away our futures? And I know that it is hard, even for the people who enforce this and don't question it, or are questioning it inside. Are conflicted inside. I feel you. Trust me. I feel you. As a person in no position that you are in, but as a father, as a person trying to do the right thing, also to follow the law. And you know, it's been hard decisions. And in a sense, in support of this convoy, I don't know if I've broken laws or this and that, but I have always peacefully demonstrated, you know. In fact, not really always, I've always done it through my videos. But the very first time, really, that I've actually went to a demonstration was in Vancouver, around the 5th, where I went in support of the Freedom Convoy, and also to film and document, have some interviews with some people. I got to talk to one of the members of the PPC, the People's Party of Canada, what they call it. And the name, the PPC, People's Party of, kind of throws me off, because it's like the People's Party of China, the People's Party, you know, like the communist kind of say that. But I just basically said, you know what, I liked your message. You guys are really vocal about what's happening, and I thank you for that. But I just the name, the People's Party of, kind of throws me off a bit. But I think they sounded pretty legit, and if they got a good platform, that is good. If people want to vote for that party, good for them. But that is just one of the parties that I have personally been able to talk to, because I don't really have access to very many politicians, if any at all. except for in that rally, some people who came out in support of the party, and I was able to speak to them. But it doesn't mean that I'm just going to vote for them because I've met them, because those are the only people I've shaken hands with. I quite frankly think that maybe a very good political party maybe should be created, in the sense of maybe like the Canadian Party, like the true Canadian Party of Canada. That would be nice. Something with a really catchy name and is very solid on our rights. And I believe that the issue of Crown land is a very important issue that needs to be looked at. It is something that no politician is talking about right now. Not very many people are talking about right now. But if you look at it, actually a lot of people are talking about it. It's just you don't hear it in the mainstream, or really in political debates, but it is there. It's just people don't really understand it as much as they should, because it affects all of us. It would be nice if there was a party that could put that question to the table. I definitely know that Pierre Poilievre, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce his name well, the representative of Carleton, sorry if I'm not very punctual and very accurate with those terms. He's a conservative that has actually said that he wants to run for a conservative leader. And I believe that what he said about young men and women living in their, or even couples living in their parents' basement because they can't afford a home of their own, how this country is basically being robbed, how the Liberal Party has, taken away our rights. These are things that politicians say. And I'm very aware that these are things that politicians say. And in fact, a lot of politicians say that they're going to make it affordable, they're going to make it this, you're going to give back to the people. In a sense, that is how Justin Trudeau got elected. And quite the only honest thing that he ever did was actually legalize marijuana. And it's like now the question is, what was his ambitions behind that, especially when we're talking about respiratory illnesses coming through these viruses, these variants from the COVID-19, and then to suddenly legalize something that's going to further destroy our lungs. Good, pot, legalized. There's a lot of people that I know who smoke pot. I've had my interactions with marijuana in the past. And, if that's what people want to do, that's what they want to do. But quite frankly, to make a push on that, but then to make such a push on everything else in a backwards direction is quite frankly disrespectful. And it seems like, he was catering to the young population, the rebellious populations, saying, hey, we're going to legalize this substance. It's almost quite intentional to get votes for his cause that is not very honest to the rest of the Canadians that are not as rebellious, that want to follow the rules 100%, and believe in the system, that have now had that belief and that trust corroded. In a sense, people feel betrayed. And I was listening to what the ambassador of India, person who's like a diplomat of India, I don't know if many have seen that video, but he was saying that that once you betray people, it's very hard to get back that trust. It's almost impossible to get back that trust. And you know what I'm saying? And I found that what he said in that video to be pretty legitimate. I kind of enjoy that a lot. Talking about how Justin Trudeau was supporting all the protests in India for the farmers and all that stuff, but yet what he's doing here, how he ran away and how he treats the people, how he doesn't listen to the people, how he's basically betrayed the people. I found that to have resonated with me a lot. So this video is becoming quite long, but I don't think that I'm very boring. I think that I talk about some pretty important things, and I try to be as respectful as possible. I try to respect everybody's point of views, but quite frankly right now the views of Canadians are not being taken seriously in their view of freedom. The reason why the majority of us have immigrated to this country, you see the flags behind me, and you see that I'm also an immigrant to this country. In fact, I was raised here. But many times now, I've had even arguments with my best friend talking about not feeling very Canadian, not feeling very respected. And my friend saying, hey man, you grew up here, you shouldn't even have that notion that you come from another country and this and that. And I have to explain to my friend, well, I do. Sometimes I feel like I want to go back to my country. I want to leave this country. And it's a very sad thing, because you can see that I am a patriot. You can see that I fight for this country. I've also have fought for the politics in the United States, because they're very similar to us, because when the United States does something, it greatly influences Canada, it affects Canada. And I've tried to be very diplomatic. I've also tried to make videos for my people back at home or in Spanish-speaking nations to have more unity, to look at what's happening with our current systems. So maybe a country like Canada can have allies in that sector too. Allies that we respect, that we work with, and can work with us and have great respect for us. So I am an artist. I am a person who has actual mental impairments. A lot of people may not notice that. You'll notice that in my spelling. I am an artist. I'm a person who is very good at drawing, very good at making art. I'm also a martial artist. I'm also a hunter. So because of my setbacks, I've always been a very physically active person, and even my setbacks have affected that. But I've really tried to improve myself and become a good person, and I've tried to use the little bit of talents that I have to almost be a diplomat for my people here in Canada and my peoples back at home that speak the language that is Spanish. Talking about improving our country so that we're not immigrants to other countries in the way that we're looked at in the United States border. You know, I come from a country where the majority of people actually legally come to these countries, South America, and that's what my family did. Every single member in my family came legally to this country. They worked hard, they paid the taxes. In fact, my family's been here for, I think, over 40 years in this country. I think even longer. I think going on to 50 years. I don't know, I gotta really look into that. But we have been here for many generations. We have paid, we have trusted, we have voted, we have endured, we have contributed. A lot of people in my family are professionals. They're a good trades worker. No one in my family is really a delinquent. No one. The only person who's ever had any trouble, in fact, in my family is me. I'm the only one who has had setbacks, who's been slow, has been hard to get a job. And that's not because it's just the prosperity of Canada, because it's my family, they work really hard for it. And the setbacks that I have had have made me experience things in Canada that my family wouldn't even understand if it was explained to them. Things that I have endured in the school and the education system. When I was looking at the First Nations children, the residential schools, I related a lot to that because of the things that I faced in school that I'm not going to get into in this video. But they're very severe things. I've experienced true racism. But like I said, I'm not a person that sits here complaining. You know, what I do is I move forward. But I've experienced the greatest slums that Canada can offer. I've experienced the poverty in the true form. I have seen and basically just, I've had my friends died, overdosed to drugs, people that I know who have been personally shot to death. You know, it's it's not an easy thing to say, but I you know, my fiance had her sister last February basically shot dead, and it wasn't from a lawful gun owner that just lost it. It was from illegal gun running, from the stuff that truly ruins our country and ruins our people, and gives Justin Trudeau firepower against us to say that we need to lose our rights more. You know, quite frankly, it's hard to say that. You know, I don't try to make videos to be emotional, but it is the truth. I'm not going to sit here and edit this out. But it does hurt me. And quite frankly, it's part of the reason why I make these videos. It's one of the main reasons I make these videos. Why I question what's happening with our land, what's happening with our politics, who our leaders are. When, trust me, I've wanted to forget. I've wanted to just escape. I just wanted to put my head in the sand like a lot of people do. But no, I stand. And I think of those people. And I think of people who have lost their lives in ways where it seems like they don't have a voice because of the drugs, because of the stuff that they were going through. Witnessing plenty of youth that I've seen and I've walked by on the streets. Just here in British Columbia, you know, youth that I've seen that are overdose cases later on that night. People who are suicide cases, people who are victims to gang violence. And it's not a gang violence because we gotta correct the whole country, but it's our things that I believe are allowed to happen in our country. Things that our politicians, you know, allow. I see that Doug Ford in Ontario has been there for quite a long time, and his brother Rob Ford before him. And the other day, reminding me of who this family is, watching Rob Ford smoking crack, rubbing shoulders with probably some of the worst people in our country that actually hurt our youth, hurt our people.
Yeah. What the are we both in? I'm not gonna leave that.
Trudeau right there. I like to get the Justin Trudeau and shove my foot as far up his ass, because I'm sure it goes real far. I'm sure if I shove my foot as far up his ass, because I'm sure it goes real far. I'm sure my tickle his nose hairs with my foot up his ass, because he's such a shit to me. I hate Trudeau, man.
He's just saying.
Bullshit.
And it just gave me a reminder that our politicians are in bed with the crime. You know, if we have a person like Justin Trudeau right now doing this to our country, I definitely know that our politicians are in bed with these organized crimes and allowing this to happen. Gaining real estate, you know, whatever the plan is, it's sinister and it's there. And that's why when I see all this stuff, bad policing, bad politicians, it truly gives me respect for the police officers that are good, for the military personnel, which is the majority of them that are good, that are true patriots, and as well for politicians that, you know, have to kind of bide their tongue, people who have went in there with a good goal, with a good plan, only to realize what they have got themselves into, who just basically keep their mouths shut or at least try in different ways. I truly have respect for people out there who are amongst us, who are amongst even these wolves. You know, we're not sheep, we're wolves too. We're hunters too. You know, we're not sheep. We're not just sheep. But the thing is that we're not rabid wolves. You know, we're people. We can fight. You know, we can also hurt in our defense. But we are good people. We're law-abiding citizens. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of good politicians out there that do have a good heart. You know, and often I would say that they're victims. They are probably scared, extorted people with handlers behind them. You know what I'm saying? A lot of gatekeepers that are keeping our people within those gates. I have the greatest respect for the First Nations people in this country. Believe it. Some of my best friends have been First Nations. Some of the greatest people that I've known have died, have been from First Nations, have lost their lives in all manners. You know, residential school kids, I've met plenty of them as adults, traumatized, and people who are trying, but also people who have been greatly affected. And when I say that we should do this with the Crown land, it's not so that we can take away from First Nations rights, because the Crown land doesn't give First Nations rights. What it does is that it gatekeeps them, and it keeps them small, and it keeps them from expanding, it keeps them from growing. It is a racket on these people. And that's why I say, First Nations, don't let yourselves be manipulated by these BLMs and these Antifas. It's not justice. The injustice is being done to you even further, to saying, hey, let's put everybody on a reserve. Let's put this whole country under subjection for your cause, which is not your cause. It's the cause of politicians, people like Justin Trudeau. We know that he's a liar. Apart from this video being a video about advocating those things, I hope that you guys understood what I meant with the Crown land and how we are subjected with this Crown system. It is very disrespectful that some of us, or people that right now are being arrested or being fined through this freedom convoy or through this protest, have to go to the courts and see a crown that's going to persecute them, and then look up at a poster of the face of Queen Elizabeth and the man she stands beside. Those images, to see them perhaps before you go to jail. Looking at our coin and seeing the Queen's head. Looking at our persecutors called the Crown. Looking at our entire parliament system. You know, going to a court and calling people your honor. And then to know that all our land, basically in image, belongs to the Queen of England. It is a very hard thing for a lot of us to deal with. And a lot of people who don't even know that they have an oppression through that eventually come to realize when they look at that photo of the Queen. For me, that is, in a sense, personal because of the abuse that I have personally taken in this country, not just by people who don't like my culture. Certain ignorant elements that I don't blame. I just say, hey, I hope you learn. I hope you get past that. This system has abused me, has abused a lot of people that I've known. I've been in foster care systems. I've been in special programs as a child. I basically was transformed into a person who could have been not a doctor with my impairments, but because of my impairments, transformed into a person who, especially in this economy, will never be able to properly own a home. We'll always be in poverty. We'll always have to take the lesser jobs. We'll always have to be the ones that get fired, to the point where I've forced myself to become a businessman. I forced myself with the little bit that I have to become a businessman, to increase my art, to increase my voice, to rehearse my voice, to practice myself, and go forward. And a lot of people have. And to think that when I make a video like this, it gets censored on YouTube because they feel like these opinions should not be heard by anybody, that these are opinions that should only be discussed by authoritative sources. I hope that all of you who have watched this video was able to take something from it, was able to have understanding of where this channel comes from, where I come from. This channel is mirrored, these videos are mirrored on another channel called Citizens First. It used to be called Wise Warriors Path 2, but I decided to change it to Citizens First because I found that, that's what we need. We need our citizens to be first. Not just our citizens, but us as individuals to be first, especially when you have a government that says that they're here for us. It should be us first. And since we've been second for decades, since the beginning, a lot of us, for generations now, I think for the first time in a long time, we should be first. I thank all of you for watching this video, for taking the time, and I hope that you're all having a great day. I hope that all of you can find it in your hearts to use your voice, to when those cops that make those videos saying that, who are you going to support? Tyranny or your families? I hope that you guys make the choice of supporting your families, and as well as, don't completely throw our political system under the bus. We are not like other countries or certain countries out there that are really bad. We got opportunities, and we got to get a hold of them, and we got to hold the people who are in power, not just serving us, accountable. And we also got to hold ourselves accountable for our actions. And that's why I recommend anybody who goes to those freedom protests to be respectful, to not break any laws, to not cause damage or vandalism. Don't give these people a reason. But also inherently have respect. When cops don't do anything and don't say anything, don't say, what do they got to say now? Have respect. Because there is a lot of police officers in Ottawa who are quite frankly resigning, who are quitting their jobs, who have made videos with threats of investigations and loss of job to themselves. And for all the people that I know personally who are watching this video, be strong. Stay strong. Go forward. My final recommendation is that new political parties be formed in Canada. I would like to put my voice in as a diplomat, not a political leader, but perhaps as a diplomat, as a person who can mend relations, who can speak to people, and also speak to people who have impairments, people with disabilities, who I believe need a little bit more representation. Me being one of those people who were in that community, meeting a lot of people who quite frankly can't even use their voice, or are quite frankly disabled beyond communication, let's just say. I would like to be a voice for people, especially the vulnerable in our society, especially for the people that are suffering through the drugs. It's not something that I likely wanted to be, but quite frankly, if I can make a difference for the most vulnerable in our society, I would wish to do so. I've made my mistakes growing up. I've had my interactions with not being a very good person, growing up under bad influences, especially growing up in the worst that society can be in. You know, I've been guilty of making my mistakes. And quite frankly, as an adult, as a person who's 33 years old now, I'm here. I'm here as a father. I'm here as basically as a husband, as a son, and as a grandson to my grandparents, are very noble people. My grandfather who died, and perhaps in a way he shouldn't have died. My grandmother who also struggled really hard in her last days. My dad right now who is struggling a lot, and he might pass away soon. My parents are nearing the end. You know, and I know that my time's going to come. All our time's going to come. The doctor says, you're going to die. I say, you're right. One day, we will all die. But what do we do while we're here? My voice, I guess, makes history. Because one day, people in the future generations in my family will hear what I had to say. Will watch this video. But I'm glad that all of you can hear it right now, if you can hear it beyond the censorship. I'm sorry this became somewhat of an episode, but thank you very much for spending this time, and if you've made it to the end, I truly thank you. God bless you, Canada. Thank you for your voice. And internationally, you are backed up. Countless people and many nations are behind you. Thank you, Canada, for bringing me this encouragement when I almost lost all hope. Thank you.